Brad Garlinghouse just called out the big banks. New mergers and acquisitions possibly on the way. And not to mention the Clarity Act should be done by the end of the year. Brad just dropped some bombs in this interview. Let's cover it. Good morning, XRP Army. It is Thursday, October 16th. I am glad you are here. If you were here yesterday, make sure you subscribe, like, comment, let me know you're here. It's okay. If this is your first time, chill. Kick your feet up, relax. First one's free. I don't ask you to pay until the second time. And all you have to do is hit that subscribe button and like the video. But first, we got to get into what Brad said. He just dropped some bombs yesterday. I'm going to play each of these here for you. Just a few. There's more coming, but I want to take the most important parts. So the first one he's going to talk about here in this first clip, he's going to talk about new acquisitions and stuff possibly coming down the pipeline for Ripple. Let's take a listen.
Website, or I'm thinking back to when I got involved in technology in the late 90s.
I kind of feel like there's one auction website now, though. But that aside.
I don't follow that category.
So mergers and acquisitions. I wanted to ask, because Ripple has a number of examples of companies that they have acquired in the stablecoin realm, in the sort of infrastructure realm. What is sort of the plan here? What's the thought process? What's the end goal?
Partly because of the shift, I think people still underestimate the U.S. as the largest economy in the world went from very strong headwinds to pretty strong tailwinds. Now we're still figuring out as an industry what do those tailwinds mean in the United States. And again, having the chief legal officer from Citibank, is an example of that shift. And I think he even talked about how it was very, very hard for them to engage this industry. This has been publicly reported, but I personally was debanked by Citibank during the last 4 years. And I think, happily we're past that stage. But I still think people underestimate the shift in those headwinds and tailwinds. And Ripple's thesis has been, okay, now is a time to really be aggressive about growth. And that is both organic growth and continuing to build. We're in the payments business, leveraging core technologies around blockchain and the XRP ledger around payments. We're in the custody business. We're in the stablecoin business. And then earlier this year, to your point around mergers and acquisitions, we spent $1.25 billion to buy Hidden Road, a prime broker, frankly, the largest non-bank prime broker out there. And we bought for $200 million, a stablecoin company called Rail, which was one of the leading stablecoin companies for the enterprise. So corporate treasury looking to use stablecoins to solve some of their internal movement of money, and that has been a great acquisition for us. So we're going to continue to play offense. I hope I have some more news on that very, very soon. And we think now is the time to invest, and that partly because of that macro shift in government policy for the United States.
Interesting. And when it comes to government policy right now, I know
Okay, I know you guys just heard. If that doesn't get you going, I don't know what will. Their acquisitions have been going great, and they're talking about now's the time to aggressively continue, and that he's hoping to talk about more acquisitions in the near future. They're buddy with Citibank. Guys, this cannot be more bullish for Ripple. Now, I know it's the CEO, but this is in DC with large players, okay? Chainlink's there, Ondo's there, Citi's there, okay? This is infrastructure merging. Pay attention, okay? This is huge, but what's even better is this next clip I'm going to show you where Brad G just slaps big banks right in the face. I love it. All right, let's take a look. I'll mute Mike again here.
Right now, I know we touched on this a little bit the last panel, that there seem to be certain agencies that are kind of giving the green light, full speed ahead, but there are groups like the Fed that are maybe a little bit more tentative. And I'm wondering kind of what your experience has been so far. Do you think that things are going to change when we finally get open a few more openings on the Fed? What are your expectations? Where are we at now? What are your expectations for the next few years?
So I have two thoughts about that. One, and as much as I have enjoyed some of the panels here today, one of the things I would ask everyone to do, both reporters and otherwise, is to hold traditional finance accountable for, yes, I agree, the crypto industry should be held to the same standard around AML, KYC, OFAC compliance. Yes, yes, yes. And we should have the same access to infrastructure like a Fed master account. You can't say one and then combat the other. Like that's disingenuous, and it just it's hypocritical, and I think we all should call them out for being anti-competitive in that regard. So that's kind of one thought of just there should be a level playing field. And to the extent we're seeing people act in different ways. Now, the other part I would say, as much as a lot of the Fed managed by this administration, the federal government, not the Fed, as much as that shift has changed, I think some banks are still nervous until those changes are codified into law. The Genius Act obviously helped, and that unlocks, I think, I had meetings yesterday in New York City where banks that would not have talked to us 3 years ago are now leaning in and saying, how can we partner around this?
Around stablecoin.
Around stablecoins, for sure. And again, the delta there is the Genius Act has codified into law. We haven't seen that happen. I mean, again, Ripple has had, we fought the fight and we have clarity that XRP is not a security, but the industry doesn't have that, which I think creates challenges for some of the more conservative banking infrastructure, even though they're like, yeah, okay, we're interested, but are they really leaning in because they're worried that in 3 years from now there's another election, and is there a shift? I think that's a little bit too cautionary, because I think every day that goes by, even if without the Clarity Act in place, there's more and more firm policy positions that agencies are taking.
And so you think that even though there might be some sort of regulatory shift with the next administration, whoever they are, you're not going to go back to where we were at with Gary Gensler?
I definitely don't think that was. Frankly, I think that was a dark day for technology in the United States, and they were not acting with good intent. And I could spend a whole half an hour session just.
All right, there was a lot to unpack in that clip. First off, good for you, Brad. Good for you. That just let them have it. Just straight up call them out for being pansies. I freaking love it. The next part of that, though, that's really important to unpack is that the part where he was talking about the stablecoin growth, right? Now that we have the Genius Act and they're seeing a lot of growth in their stablecoins, which is one of the reasons why they did the acquisition. And there are banks and other institutions talking to them in regards to the use of XRP, and it does have legal clarity as a security. It is the only cryptocurrency that has legal clarity, that it is not a security. And he thinks a lot of these banks are going to start leaning in more once the Clarity Act is complete, and just like they have stablecoins with the Genius Act, and he thinks it's going to happen this year. So that's bullish, guys. I don't know if we can get much more bullish than that. If we get the clarity, once the government opens, if they get this Clarity Act and those ETFs go live, it is on like Donkey Kong. This next part I think is important. This is Ripple still honoring the small banks and crushing a narrative that should have never been a thing to begin with, honestly. But let's take a look at this part right here.
Work with us unless we have really leaned into being compliance first.
And I know there have been some concerns raised from community banks who say, look, if you give Ripple and others a bank charter or a master account, we're concerned that you're already going to see funding. Trillions, I think, are projected to go from some of these smaller banks into crypto. There's a concern about a lack of capital. How do you respond to that?
There's nothing that stops community banks from leaning into these new technologies also. This is kind of the classic, people are afraid of innovation and the innovator's dilemma. And we shouldn't penalize customers, consumers, based upon maybe a particular community bank's unwillingness to lean into new technologies. That doesn't make sense to me. We should want community banks. If anything, it should be how do we provide clarity such that community banks can be served and leverage these technologies and compete with Citibank. That's a good thing. Right now, the community bank has to pay Citibank. I shouldn't pick on Citi. I like Brent a lot, actually, but. Let's say HSBC. They're not represented here. But the big correspondent banks are making money from the community banks by actually being their correspondent bank to settle cross-border transactions.
I'm wondering too, kind of dipping back into market structure here for a second. I mean, if the Senate doesn't get stuffed on market structure, you've said that you've already seen this increased interest in things like stablecoin in the markets. I mean, does that kind of put a freeze on things if there's no regulatory clarity coming from Congress this year, no certainty? Is that going to make it that much harder for a lot of the digital asset space to gain traction with companies, gain traction with banks?
So I think you asked the question in kind of a black versus white, and I think about it as gray. It depends upon the bank. It depends upon, you know.
Okay, so that's really important to digest and take in, and I love the fact that he just crushed it. It actually helps small banks. There's a narrative going that that blockchain technology is gonna kill small banks, and some of them are gonna go away because a lot of banks are gonna lose money that they've been stealing from us. And I'm sorry, I don't necessarily feel sad for the banks. But it sounds like they're going to have an equal opportunity to thrive with blockchain just as the large institutions are, and it's actually going to be more favorable to them and more competitive for them, which is a good thing. But so there's a lot to unpack here, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you are here, you better keep coming back. Nah, I don't know what to tell you, but I'll see you guys on the next video. Later.